Excellent. Thank you very much. I don't know. I'll reserve judgment whether it's going to be awesome content or not. So my name's Darryn Campbell. Thank you very much for that introduction. Thank you for having me at the Ioniconf 2021. I'm a software architect, developer relations, software engineer, actually, by training at a company called Zebra Technologies, and I'll get more into that. Not a great deal into that. My website, Twitter handle, if you want to reach out to me after the presentation or during, I won't obviously respond during, but I'm going to be talking about how we have seen Ionic being used for enterprise applications. And I'll just, if I can actually click the right screen, I want to make sure everyone's level set on what enterprise applications are, what Android Enterprise is. This will be an Android heavy talk, just because that's my expertise. We're actually an OEM for Android ruggedized devices, so that's my background, but I will touch on iOS where it's relevant to the presentation. We've actually had a really long-standing relationship with Ionic going back a number of years, and we have a number of large enterprise companies using Ionic, so I thought it made sense to come here and sort of educate this audience why enterprises, large companies, choose to use Ionic for their development. I'll just cover a little brief history about the hybrid applications used in my industry, and then I'll go on to more specifics about actual use of Ionic on Zebra devices and Zebra competitor devices. It's not a sponsored talk. I just want to impart general knowledge. So what is Android Enterprise? But more like higher level than that, what is an enterprise application as opposed to a consumer application? And the way I like to describe it is a consumer application is an application where, as a developer, you want the user to spend as much time in your application as possible. You might be wanting to do that to gather, well, if you're being a bit nefarious, gather analytics about them. You might want to serve them adverts, or you might just be a really passionate developer that wants the user, the player of your game perhaps, to enjoy your application and spend as much time as possible using your app and enjoying it because it gives you personal satisfaction, and then they obviously download extras, and that's how you make your money. Enterprise applications are essentially the polar opposite, other than the fact that you get pretty dedicated developers on both sides. But in general, the idea is that you want the user to interact with your app as little as possible, because they're going to use your application to do a job, to get a job done, to service a customer, to be in a warehouse, to do some kind of product lookup. I'll get to maybe some more use cases on the next slide, but essentially you just want to service the user and then have the user disappear from your app. And that's a very efficient, effective app, because every time the user is playing about in your application is seconds, valuable seconds that the enterprise, the business has lost in user productivity. Obviously, this isn't some kind of Orwellian dystopian future where you don't have any free time as an employee, but I'm talking in abstract. So what Android have done, and I'm led to believe that very similar things were done with iOS. Back in Android Lollipop, there was the introduction even of the work profile. And the work profile on Android devices allowed you as a user to essentially separate the personal applications which you used, Angry Birds, or as it was at the time, Fruit Ninja, or all those, the good old days, from your work application. So in your work profile, you would have your time management application, your expenses application, Office, SharePoint, Skype. There you go. There's another one that you might have been using at the time. All of that separate. And the idea is that the organization, the company that you worked for, had control over that work profile, and they could provision applications to you. They could remove them. They could ensure that certain policies were set on the device. So if the device was lost, then you the expenses application or some kind of application which exposed critical customer data, there was definitely a password that had necessary complexity, yada, yada, yada. All of that is essentially how you manage a corporate device. And that was the beginning. What then, and the kind of sorry. My point to this slide, I will try and stay on topic as much as possible, is that this really serviced what we called the knowledge worker. So the kind of worker, like, well, pretty much this audience, I would guess. The audience, maybe developers, maybe managers, the people that would use this kind of smartphone to achieve their work productivity. The next change we saw in Android, and this, honestly, I swear this is not a history of Android Enterprise. I just want to make sure everyone has a bit of the same grounding of where I'm coming from as a developer and my experience. The next stage was Android Marshmallow, where Google first introduced what they called at the time like single-use devices. These were the ruggedized Android devices that you would see in the warehouse, for example, or an employee doing a stock check in a retail environment, or maybe it was someone doing like online shopping, buy online, pick up in store, delivery applications, all of those kind of devices that you see in your day-to-day lives that what line workers, as they're known, would be using, fall under this category of rugged devices. And here, they're still running those same enterprise devices. In fact, they're probably not the same devices, same applications, because the type of app on this device is going to be an application which is designed to do a productive job. You're going to be scanning barcodes. You're going to be delivering packages. You're going to be taking in rental cars, as they call them in the States, hire cars here in the UK, and taking pictures of damage with the camera on the device. These kind of they're going to be out in the rain or whatever else. So here, the enterprise fully manages the whole device. You don't have this notion of work profile and personal profile. No one's going to be going home with, in fact, I've got one here if I can not, no one's going to be using this as their personal phone. I mean, you can, well, not this one, it doesn't have WAN, but we do them with WAN. So you're doing it to achieve a job. And this is the background I'm coming from, these ruggedized Android devices. Personal shopping, that's another one where you'd have applications running on the device, and you're able to do your own scanning. And that's really popular here in Europe, less so in the States. But yeah, if you've gone into certainly Sainsbury's or Tesco in the UK here, you've most likely used one of our Zebra devices. In fact, for a long time, I know for sure that the applications running on those devices were hybrid apps as well. That's a little bit before Ionic, my experience with that. So yeah, that's a little bit about what Android Enterprise is, what enterprise devices are, the kind of companies who are purchasing these devices. Obviously, they're really huge. I mentioned a few of those, like they're the very large retailers, transport, logistics, warehousing, hospitals, government institutions who need this kind of functionality. It's not something you would go on Amazon or eBay and purchase, although I have seen a few of them pop up on eBay now and then. So let me take you back. So in my industry, this enterprise industry that I've come from, hybrid applications have always played a part. And I've actually been part of Zebra Technologies, or one of its ancestor companies, since 2008. So longer than most Android developers have been developing mobile apps. I've been to a couple of job interviews actually, and they say, how many years have you been writing mobile app code? And you say, about 13 years. And they're like, oh, I didn't even know there was mobile apps 13 years ago. But yes, back then, applications would typically run maybe Windows CE or Pocket PC, Windows Mobile, and I was watching a YouTube video the other day, and he was actually, it's one of those retro technologies, and it was Windows CE, and I thought, oh my God, I am getting old when these retro YouTubers are reviewing the kind of devices I used to code for. Yeah, I mean, if you're not familiar with CE, it's kind of what was powering smartphones back in 2003, 2004. Actually ran the Dreamcast was running CE quite famously, or that was CE2 at the time. Anyway, I said I'd get back to my point for this slide, which is that hybrid developers have been developing apps for these kind of devices all the way back when they were running old versions of Windows. They were using IE, Internet Explorer, as the rendering engine. Ionic obviously wasn't a thing back then, and neither was many of these frameworks. They tended to be developed in-house, so they were OEM. We actually had our own, which is where my history of development comes from. The we still have a proprietary application called Enterprise Browser, and I'm proudly wearing the t-shirt here. I thought that would be appropriate for this presentation. My point again is that there was a demand for this kind of development, HTML, JavaScript apps to run, even though these were bespoke technical devices with very little RAM, very little processor as it was at the time. You kind of think, hang on, you're running your whole app in a web browser. Isn't that going to be slow? Like, what are the performance issues? Shouldn't you write your app in C for memory reasons? And hey, those kind of considerations just have never gone away with enterprise frameworks, have they? I'm not here to advocate one way or the other. In fact, in my role, I try and appeal to the widest range of developers. So I'll probably get onto this a bit later, but we have a very large Ionic community, which is what I'm here to sort of talk about today. So the crux of my presentation here is, why do Ionic developers, or why do enterprise developers, sorry, choose to use any kind of hybrid framework? And I thought about this, and the honest reason is it's the same as yourselves who are developing applications potentially for consumer devices. Familiarity with the programming language is the main one. So familiarity with JavaScript, TypeScript, web technologies, HTML. Developers love what they love. That's the main reason that I find that developers will stick to hybrid programming, because they want to program in JavaScript. That's what they know, regardless. They're a JavaScript house. So be it. It's good for you. Personally, my background is with Java, because that's just what I was taught at university. I'm now being brought kicking and screaming into Kotlin for native development, which I'm not pleased about, because it's just, it's what I know, it's what I love. So I'd rather be happy with that. And there's lots and lots of developers who are very happy with JavaScript and other web technologies. The other, I'd say the secondary reason is because developers do not want to lock themselves into Android. And that might sound a bit strange coming from me, who works for an Android OEM. It's like, hey, wouldn't a developer developing for your devices always want to target Android? And yeah, our competitors run Android as well. So from the point of view of someone who wants to not lock themselves to Zebra, but just wants to abstract themselves a little bit, maybe they could write an Android application which abstracts the SDK for scanning, for example, and then they can go with Zebra, or with very little changes go with one of our competitors. What we have found over the years is iOS has been incredibly aggressive and, well, that's a bit of an emotive word, sorry. They've been very popular in the enterprise space, particularly with like high-end fashion retailers to start. Like, the retailers wanted to have all of their employees at the front of house with iPads. This is when iPads first came out, and iPhones, and I've seen iPhones being used to take my order at restaurants, fairly low-end restaurants. I don't shop at high-end restaurants, so who do you think I am? I also saw iPhone being used. I went on a tour of Buckingham Palace. Couldn't be any more British. And they were using iPhones there for the tour mechanism. And I managed to get out of the tour and into the stocks app. And then I thought, what am I doing? I'm not impressing anyone. I'm just giving the poor lady behind the counter more effort to sort of fix the device that I'm breaking. But anyway, love a challenge. So don't want to lock themselves into Android, then they just have a single app that they can deploy to our devices or iOS devices without having to retool. Many organizations will have an expertise in a particular area. And so if I'm a really large company and I have my development team, and I know that I'm going to need to have iOS devices for the front of house, and maybe they've chosen Zebra devices in their warehouse for their pickup in store, sort of maybe self-scanning, but where the employees pick your items for you. One app or one app team to develop all of the apps that run both front of house and back of house. Anyway, the third one is to create beautiful applications. And obviously, you can do that very easily with Ionic, to create an application which meets the needs of a typical user, be it on the consumer side or an enterprise side, or whoever you're writing your application for. It can be made to look very nice with Ionic. Certainly, I need help to make my apps look nice. One of some of my best apps have been ones that I've been essentially given the user experience for. It's like, hey, just code this. And looks nice after that. One thing that maybe people have, I don't know, again, I'm making myself feel old now, but when I first started, I used to work for a retailer here in the UK called Sainsbury's back in the early 2000s, and our stock control devices were actually DOS based, and they didn't even have a permanent network connection. You had to go into the back room and download all of the stock check that you'd done onto the computer, and yeah, there's all sorts of problems with those. But they've obviously upgraded to more recent devices now. But the expectation back then was, hey, it's an enterprise application. It's going to look pretty rubbish. It was just one of those like black and white, well, a black and white screen, but text. Nowadays, people coming into the workforce doing that kind of job that I was doing at university at the time, I would nowadays expect to have an application that's very similar to what I have on my smartphone, and therefore it needs to work and fit my paradigm, my expected paradigms. Otherwise, I'm going to need training. Employers don't want to train people because that costs money, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, creating beautiful, although those are the three main reasons that I could come up with that enterprises would choose to use Ionic or any other hybrid framework, to be honest. And over the years, we have seen a very large number of frameworks that our largest customers dabble with. So my role in Zebra is I am a software architect, like it says on the introductory slide, but I'm kind of the hybrid framework go-to person. So I'm the one that's written all of the sample applications for, if you're a Cordova developer, here's your sample app to write an app for Zebra devices. If you're a Xamarin developer, if you're a React Native developer, a Flutter developer. So when the customers want help with any of these, I tend to be the one that the sales engineers pull in because I've got the most expertise. And obviously, if it's our larger customers, then they want attention on these particular accounts. So I'm coming to you as someone in an organization that deals with many, many hybrid frameworks, and I can tell you that Ionic is the most popular one that I have seen our largest customers deal with. In fact, I've got a call next week with a very large retailer in the US who wants to understand the roadmap of Ionic. We're currently purchasing from you, Mr. Zebra, like thousands of devices, and we are going to upgrade those devices to Android 10. What does that mean for our Ionic application? So we have to get involved in that because it's thousands of devices. We want to create a good customer experience, and that's they've obviously chosen to use Ionic for all of the reasons I had on the previous slide. Which does bring me nicely, actually, into Ionic in the enterprise. I think I was going to make, I had a few other points I was going to say on this slide. Like, I don't know how long people on this call would have been involved in hybrid application development, but things like Sencha Touch or jQuery Mobile, I remember when we first started bringing out an Android device, we had a customer in Canada, a really large retailer in Canada, was writing their front of house application in Sencha Touch, and it just barely run on an iPad as it was at the time. So certainly those performance issues have been solved recently as opposed to like 7 or 8 years ago. So Ionic in the enterprise. I wanted to get some real experience and sort of, rather than just me talking about it, to actually give you some examples of companies who have chosen to use Ionic. I'm not really at liberty to say specific companies from the Zebra point of view, because you obviously need to talk to the companies and can we use your name in marketing, blah, blah, blah. So the web page here, this is Ionic's web page of we help companies build world-class applications. So these are not all Zebra customers, but certainly there are customers on this page that I've had dealings with, like very close dealings about Ionic. So this page is certainly not made up. These companies are really writing large-scale deployments of Ionic apps being used by users who have performance at the front of their mind, who want to get the job done. Some of these will be if the job doesn't get done, then there's severe implications, financial, business, or anything else. So yeah, they've chosen to use Ionic, and these are the sort of people that we're dealing with. We haven't only just started dealing with them, though. So way back in 2018, in the happy times, if we remember those, we've had this very long-standing relationship with Ionic, and this is not a relationship which has been because someone at Zebra really liked Ionic, or someone at Ionic really liked Zebra, although I'm sure those people do exist. This was something that grew about organically because customers were coming to us individually and saying, hey, Zebra, we like Ionic, give us some advice, examples to use. And we also had, well, I'm told Ionic had their developers coming to them saying, hey, we want to target Zebra devices, we need APIs, we need native APIs to actually access things like the barcode scanner. At the top of all of our devices got this integrated imager. And yeah, so this was a dev talk we put together. All the information's still relevant now. Just including it to say that this isn't like a brand new thing. This has been an interest in the enterprise for quite a number of years through Ionic's growth. Honestly, since the very beginning of Ionic, I've seen interest in Ionic in the enterprise. So what I did is I put together, for these developers who wanted to write applications for our devices, we had an intent-based API. And so I thought, hey, I will write a plugin for Cordova, as it was, because we're back in 2018, to access our Zebra APIs. And I wrote it in a kind of generic way because I wanted to open source it. We didn't have the resources within Zebra to support, officially support this thing. So, hey, we use the open source community. And yeah, it was very popular. It actually ended up, this plugin, because I wrote it in a generic way, was the underpinning implementation of Ionic Framework's Web Intent plugin. So if you have used Web Intent in your application, you have inadvertently used code which I developed to support Zebra devices. So yeah, there you go. And I did a couple of sample apps, obviously, and I think when I looked for this slide, there was 27 stars and 15 forks, which is a bit rubbish, really, for an open source app. But for a demo app aimed at a niche market, I didn't think that was bad. One of the trends, though, which I thought was interesting, and again, this was just putting this slide together, I really noticed this. Back in the day, enterprises would fix on a specific version of Android, of their application, of Google Play services, or of everything else. And a number of things have changed in the industry, not least of which is Google's insistence on pushing everyone to the latest Target SDK and the latest version of Android and Play services. But there is more of an acceptance in the industry across enterprise developers now, I see, of wanting to be on the latest version of anything, and Ionic is no exception. So I've put some example issues in there over the years, because originally I wrote this for Ionic version 1, and then it was version 2. I thought I'll update this, and then hey, please support Ionic 3, Ionic 4. I got not fed up, but I got fed up with people keep asking for more recent updates. So I think it was Christmas, a couple of Christmases ago, I wrote to Ionic 6 and went through the whole process. You'll probably remember that at the time. So we are now at a point where we can support Cordova. I just wanted to have some kind of announcement today. So in order to support Zebra devices for Ionic developers, if you're looking for an example of how to use that generic plugin intent in a capacitor framework, I put this sample together. Announcing today, which is a capacitor-based demo that uses intents to interact with Zebra devices, but you can use it outside of Zebra as well for any kind of intent-based interface. So with that, I think if I leave 5 minutes for questions, and I'll just leave this up here. This is my GitHub, and if you have interest in Zebra or enterprise development, then all sorts of links are on there. Like Mike said, the slides will be available after this presentation. So yeah, let's see